Very good morning to all of you. This session will also help you in finding the good stocks. Okay. One disclaimer I would like to make that it's very difficult just to say simply, okay, you invest in this stock. I can provide you with the tools, how you can analyze the particular stock. Okay. So this session is helpful how to analyze the particular stock, what are the tools, what are the styles of investing I'm going to talk about in today's session. So let's first of all have a look what are we going to learn in today's session. First of all, we will talk about the styles of investing. Okay, so what are the styles of investing? And then we will understand a little bit ratio analysis. I will not go through the whole chapter of ratio analysis, but the key ratios which are useful in finding a good stock or help us to find the fundamentals of the company, right? And then we'll talk about the P ratio, which is a key ratio in stock market. And what is the impact of DII? I'll explain each and everything. What are DII, FII, and promoter holdings on the share prices. Okay. And then I'll talk about the fundamental analysis of Infosys. I'll try to do fundamental analysis of Infosys company. And then I'll try to do fundamental analysis of Yes Bank and Alok Industries. Okay. And then there's a homework for you also to find out the good stock. Okay. So it's a nice quote which I got it from internet. Yes. It's not about having lots of money. Okay. It's about how you manage it. So if you even have a less amount of money, you can grow your money by investing at a right place. In the yesterday session, I talked about what are the different, instruments are available to invest. Out of those instruments, there were like short-term instruments in the money market, like commercial paper, like T-bills, certificates of deposit. Okay. And if we come to the capital market, we have investment options in bonds, stocks. Okay. And if you know that I cannot invest directly into that instruments, I cannot directly, invest in those instruments. Like I don't know how to buy T-bills. I don't know how to go for a certificate of deposit. Okay. I don't know how to invest in stock. I don't have demat account. What should I do? Okay. Then I don't know how to purchase bonds from the market. Then there is another option, which is mutual fund. Okay. So yesterday I also talked about the mutual fund. Mutual fund is basically a pooling of funds which is professionally managed by the portfolio manager, which manages your investment. Okay. So you can choose from where you want to invest from the mutual fund schemes. So categorized, I discussed the categorization of a mutual fund. SEBI has uh, categorize the mutual funds into equity funds, debt funds, solution oriented funds, other funds, and hybrid funds. Okay. So you can invest from. So if you want to invest in equity, not through directly investing in stocks, and you don't want to, you don't have that much skills, you can go for the mutual fund. But one thing which I want you to tell you that please be aware when you invest through a financial advisor, or just ask what has been the returns for this fund, what are the holdings in the fund. If you're investing in a fund, okay, so you should be aware about that where your money is being invested. Okay. If it is an equity fund, then in equity fund, where it is being invested, in small caps, large caps, mid caps, where it is being invested. So you need to be careful while doing investment. Or if you're going for the debt bond, in the debt bond also, which funds? I mean, government bonds, corporate bonds, T-bills, money market. If you go for the hybrid, just do check. There are various websites where you can check the holdings, where you can check the returns, performance by looking at the charts. Okay. And keeping in the mind macroeconomic view, which is very much important. Okay. So let's begin with the today's session. I hope you enjoy the session. Okay, so first of all, what are the styles of investing? Okay, let's talk about first of all, I have categorized into three. One is the value investing, second is the growth investing, third is the momentum investing. Let's understand first of all what is value investing. Okay, now value investing was in first it was the theory of Benjamin Graham, okay, who was the professor in Columbia University, and he proposed the value investing approach. In value investing, he said, find out the stocks which are undervalued. What was the theory behind the value? What is the theory behind the value investing? Is that first of all, find out the stocks which are underpriced. Now the question comes, how would we able to find the securities or the shares which are underpriced? Underpriced means which is not completely to its intrinsic value, which is far away from the intrinsic value. Now the question comes, how would we able to find it? That is the question. All right. So the idea behind the value investing is that if you invest in a security which is underpriced, which is not at its intrinsic value, it will come eventually to its value. Okay. Let's say if there is a house, okay, and that house, the price of house is 10 lakh. Okay, but somehow we valued with the cement, the cement cost or the labor cost or so on so many parts of the house, and we valued, no, the value of the house should be 8 lakhs. Okay, then you think it is undervalued because you did the valuation of the house and you found that it is undervalued. The cement cost is 6 lakhs and so many things, and the labor cost, the material cost, it's all together comes out to be 8 lakh. Now let's say the house is selling at, let's say, 6 lakh rupees. What we valued is 8 lakh and the house is selling at 6 lakhs. Is it undervalued? Yes, because it is selling at 6 lakhs and the worth of that house is 8 lakh. It is undervalued. So the value investing based upon the idea, buy that particular stock or particular commodity which is underpriced. In my house example, if you buy that house at 6 lakhs and the worth is 8 lakhs, I'm just taking an example, okay? So it will eventually come to 8 lakh. So that is the idea behind the value investing. So what a value investor looks for, a value investor looks for, he has to analyze the company in such a manner so that he can find the value stock. First, the parameter or the key is book value. First of all, look at the book value. Now the question comes, what is book value? Right question. A book value basically is asset. If I have to calculate book value per share, book value is basically assets, whatever the assets company has, minus outside claims, which remains the owner's capital, the owner funds. If I deduct liabilities from the assets, that is owner funds. If I divide by the number of shares, what do I get is the book value per share. Okay. If let's say the book value per share comes out to be 200 with our calculation, okay, and the market price is, let's say, 190, is it overvalued? Is it overvalued? Oh, sorry, it is undervalued. Yes, it is undervalued because the worth of the stock by looking at the book value is 200, but it is selling in the market at 190. Okay, so what value investor looks for, it looks for the fundamentals of the company. Okay, it looks for the cheaper prices, it looks for the prices which are cheaper prices so that he can purchase and make profit in longer term. Okay, so it's the long term based strategy. It's not the strategy where you can make a short term profit. It is not the strategy. Okay, so basically this is a value investing concept. Let's read it. Value investment is an investment approach that seeks to profit from identifying undervalued stock. It is based on the idea that each stock has an intrinsic value, what is truly worth. Okay, value investing works in the long term because that is when prices return to its intrinsic value. Value investing does not aim to predict what prices will do in 2 months or 2 days. So basically value investing is not for the short term. You just find the stock. How would you find the stock? By looking at the company profits, by looking at the dividend yields. Value investor seeks to earn dividend from the company. Okay, the value investor will always seek to earn dividend from the company and will look at the debt of the company, debt capacity of the paying capacity of the company. Okay, so value investor will look for all these factors. We'll look at the PE ratio. Okay, so we'll talk about all such things. So I hope this is clear to you, just a general idea about what value investing is. And it was proposed by Benjamin Graham, and there's a famous book, Intelligent Investor. Okay, now let's style of investing is growth investing. Now, if we have to contrast with the value investing, growth investing is basically an investing style where you invest in a companies which are growing, which are growing and expected to expand in a very short period of time. So how it is different from the value investor or value investing? In growth investing, you look for the top line. When I'm saying top line means the revenue, okay, and bottom line is net profit. So top line, you're looking for the revenue only. If the company is making revenue, not only, but yeah, generally the people look for the revenue. Is it growing fast? Do you have the company as a strategy to grow fast? Let's invest in that company. Okay. So you jump on to those companies and buying those companies where you think the profits uh, will be expanded in the near future. They have expansion plans, business strategies, aggressive business strategies. Okay, growth investor is not much bothered about the dividend company is paying. Not much bothered. He's not bothered about what if the company is paying dividend or not. Not much bothered. He's not much bothered that the company is having debt or not. He is just bothered with the revenue growth or the net profit of the company. Okay, he's just bothered about that, not about okay, not about the debt of the company, paying capacity of the company. Just bother if the revenues are growing, net profits are growing, majorly revenues are growing or not. So that's the growth investing style. Okay, now what is your investing style? What style will you follow if you go for investing in stock market? That's my question. Ask yourself, will you go for the value investing or will you go for the growth investing? Okay, you can write in the chat box. Okay, let's say you can write in the chat box. Is my sound clear? Am I audible properly? Am I audible? Okay, fine. Right. Okay, you can students, you can write in the chat box, will you go for the value investing or the growth investing if you invest in the stock markets? Okay, I've just given you just idea about what growth investing and the value investing is. Okay, now the next is momentum investing. This is another type of investing style. Okay, in this investing style, in this investing style, it is assumed that, let's say you have been looking for a stock and you have observed that particular stock has increased for last 6 months. It's been increasing for last 6 months. Now you have a strategy in your mind. Okay, it has been increasing for last 6 months, it will increase in future also. Now this is the strategy you have. Okay, so you will invest in that company because you see a uptrend in the particular stock. Let me take one example here. If you remember the cryptocurrency, the Bitcoin, in 2017, it was skyrocketing like anything. It was just increasing. It reached to a very good level, like $14,000, if I'm not wrong, in 2017. Okay, everybody was wanted to invest in Bitcoin. Nobody knows Bitcoin, what it is. किसी को नहीं पता Bitcoin क्या है technically. Okay, but everybody wants to invest in the Bitcoin now. Okay, that is the uptrend. This is called the momentum investing. Okay, now on the another side, if the stock has started falling, okay, now the people have sentiments to sell. Okay, because they have seen a downtrend in the particular stock. Okay, now they are just started selling. Okay, so the idea is winners will will continue win, and the losers continue to lose. That is the strategy that you follow if you are following the momentum investing. But let me tell you one thing. This is a very short term strategy. Okay, does not carry any fundamental values, but it's a very short term strategy. So let's read about this strategy. What is momentum strategy? Will you go for momentum strategy to make money? Just write in the chat box. Will you go for momentum strategy? Okay. All right. So let's read about the momentum strategy. Momentum investing is an investment strategy aimed at purchasing securities that have been showing an uptrend or short selling securities that have been showing a downtrend. And the main rationale behind momentum investing is that once a trend is well established, it's likely to continue. Okay, that's what I said. Okay, now the momentum refers to the phenomenon. The momentum effect refers to the that winner phenomenon that winner stocks continue to win and losers continue to lose. Okay, so in a nutshell, let's just describe those who have missed one of those strategies. So in a nutshell, value investing looks for the underpricing. Okay, growth investing looks for the expansion plans, doesn't bother about the dividend. Third, momentum works on the uptrend or the downtrend, whatever the trend is in the market. So that's how. Okay, before we study further about the fundamental analysis, you should be very clear or should have a fair idea how the stock prices changes, how the stock price changes. The stock price is basically determined by the demand and supply. I took a example in the last class also. Let's suppose a house nearby your area, and you must have seen or observed with the brokers, the property dealers, the prices of if there are more buyers, they bid up the prices. Okay, if there are more sellers, nobody wants to buy. Nobody wants to buy that property. What will happen? They bid up the price down. Okay, so basically it is like that. If a particular stock is a favorite stock or it is attractive one, everybody wants to buy. If it is not that attractive, everybody wants to sell. Not everybody, I would say, but most people, the sentiments behind that, we want to sell, we don't want to keep that particular stock. That's right. So basically, so you need to understand the psychology behind also. You study fundamentals, that's important, but what is the psychological trend is going, what is the psychological uh, impact on the market of the investors. Okay, let me take a few examples. When BJP government came in this market, what would happen? Just were stocks up? Okay, yes, we saw a uptrend. And then what happened when we when the coronavirus infection rate started in India or in China, in fact, they consumed the information. Investors consumed this information, started selling. Just go and check the month of March, starting from February to April. It was in market was in the downtrend. Now it is more or less stable, but it was in a downtrend. Every day you would have seen that 300 points down was very common. Nifty, which is a very big thing. So it reached to all-time low since 2008 crisis. So that's how it works. So fundamentally, you should be aware. You should also be aware about the psychology of the investors. That's really very important, right? So what happens in the stock market? If a good news comes in the stock market, people consume it. Okay, and they think, okay, they start investing in that particular stock. And if there's a bad news in the company, then they start selling, and which takes the price down. Okay, so we'll study about all of these things. Next, I'm going to talk about what are ratios. Okay, so most of you may be aware of ratios if you have a commerce background. If you do not have a commerce background, you need not to worry about. I have not taken the complete list of ratios, but yes, I will try to discuss some of the ratios which are very, very important from the investing purposes. Okay. Now, first of all, I will talk about the liquidity ratio. What is liquidity? So basically, liquidity is that how much funds you have to pay. Okay. Could be in cash, could be in some assets which are, you know, which can easily be converted into cash. That is the thing. Okay. So basically, liquidity ratios assess the short term solvency of the business, that business will able to pay its obligations or not. Okay, let's assume that I have to pay 10,000 rupees to my supplier. I purchase something, and I have to pay 10,000 rupees to my supplier. Okay, now the question comes, do I have 10,000 rupees to pay my supplier? Okay, so that what current ratio, that's okay. So that is the current ratio where I have to assess, do I have the sufficient amount to pay that 10,000 rupees to my suppliers? Yes. So that is current asset. Okay, if I have, let's say, 20,000 rupees and my liabilities are 10,000 rupees, do I have sufficient amount? Yes, I do have. Let's say I have to pay 10,000 rupees to my suppliers and I just have 5,000 rupees. Do I have? No. That is the problem. So where I will source the fund? Maybe I will take a short term loan from the bank, or the bank overdraft facility. Okay, that can happen. ऐसा हो सकता है कि बैंक से हम लोन ले और फिर हम अपना रीपेमेंट करें. I told you the financial system, how it works. Okay, so yeah, so the current ratio measures the short term solvency of the business. Okay, so how does it work? Those who don't know what is current asset, for them, basically, current assets are the assets which are convertible into cash in a 1 year. Okay, it is, if I go by the definition, which are convertible by the convertible into cash. Okay, so current assets and current liability, let's say in my example, current assets, let's say 20,000. Okay, and current liabilities, I have 10,000. That's correct. So ratio comes out to be 2:1. If I divide current assets divided by current liability, so for 1 rupees, in this case, I have 2 rupees. Okay. If I take my second example where I just have 5,000 as current liabilities, sorry, current assets, and current liabilities are 10,000, it comes out to be 0.5. No, I don't have some sufficient current assets to pay my liability. Either I will raise loan, short-term loan, bank credit facility, then also I'm getting into the cycle of loans. Okay. So that is the sometimes a questionable. You should be aware. For each rupee, 1 rupee liability, in this case, I have 2 rupees. And in this case, for 1 rupee liability, I just have 0.5. Okay. Okay. Now, idle ratio, conventionally we say 2:1. Okay. But it varies from the industry to industry. Idle ratio, we say 2:1. Okay, you have 2 rupees to pay 1 rupee. That's sufficient. That company is sufficiently sound, you know. But it varies from the uh, industry to industry. How? Let's say it comes out to be 3:1. Is it a good ratio? You can write in the chat box. 3:1 is a good ratio. If you look from the different angle, your lot of money, maybe say with current assets, it will include cash also. So your lot of money has been invested in the current asset. Maybe you're not invested properly. Otherwise, you could have earned interest, so you have too much funds actually, which are not required. Yes, your money is being stuck. So yeah, so the 3 is not a good ratio then. Okay, if I say 1.5, you will look at the other factors. Okay, if the company has a good capability to pay, that's fine. If the company just have a 1.5, that's fine. You will look at the other factors, right? So conventionally we said 2:1 is the ideal ratio, but okay, now what is quick ratio? Quick ratio is basically, okay, current assets are the assets which includes your accounts receivable, you know, your inventory, your prepaid expenses and all such things. But here we just, in the quick assets, we take only those assets we can convert immediately into cash. Let's say I have to convert those assets immediately. Let's say tomorrow, I just need those assets. So what I do, exclude from quick asset is inventory, because we believe inventory is not readily available into cash, convertible into cash. Because if you have a lot of inventory, you will have to find the customers in 1 day or 2 day. You cannot find the customers, otherwise there would be a fire sales. You will have to sell the products at a very low prices, which is not a profitable for the company if you just have to sell it like anything. So we exclude inventory from the quick assets. Okay, so quick ratios basically which is readily converted into convertible into cash like in a very short period of time. So that is these all about the liquidity ratio. Next we are going to talk about the solvency ratio. Okay, now it is very much important. Solvency ratio are calculated to determine the ability of the business to service its debt in the long run. The following ratios are normally computed for evaluating solvency of the business. Okay, too much technical. Let me simplify this for you. Solvency means, is company enough solvent to pay debts? Okay, debt, if you don't know, it's like a loan. It's like a fixed burden on the company in terms of payments of interest, and the company has to repay the principal amount. Let's say if I have raised the debt, let's say 10 lakh rupees, I have to repay this debt after a certain period of time on the maturity. Let's say maturity is 10 years or 5 years. So I have to pay this amount to my lender, and I will also pay every year. Let's say 10% is the rate of interest. I will also pay 10,000 every year. Every year I will pay 10,000, 10,000. So that is the burden on the company, right? So debt equity I discussed, it's like a ownership. Let's say you have invested through IPO in the company. Now you have a ownership. You will get the share of the company, but you will not get any fixed income. You cannot expect company to give you a fixed dividend every time. No. So if the company is making profits, you will get the benefit of in terms of appreciation in your share price and appreciation in your share price and in terms of a dividend, right? So that's how the debt or equity ratio we have to calculate. Debt is basically the outside liabilities which we have to pay. Equity is our owner's capital. Okay, we don't have to pay, we're not obliged to pay. And in the bankruptcy also, if the company goes bankrupt, the company does not have anything to pay and it declared bankruptcy, then what will happen? First of all, debt holders will be paid earlier, and then equity holders. There is a waterfall structure, but for the time being, just assume if I have to compare between the debt and the equity. So debt holders will be paid first, and then the equity holders if something is left for the equity holders. Okay, so that is why equity is considered to be risky. That's why equity is considered to be a risky investment. Now let's say if the debt is, let's say the debt is 10 lakh. Okay, and equity is 1 lakh. No, let's say equity is 20 lakh. Okay, so we can say 1:2. Okay, for, so the one we have a debt for in the ratio of 2. Okay, so let's say 2 rupees as equity and 1 rupees is debt. Total assets 3. So we can say this proportion, 1/3 is debt and 2/3 is equity. We have a sufficient cover. Okay, we have a sufficient cover for a company. Okay, now the question is taking debt, if the company takes debt, is this a good thing if the company takes debt? See, that depends. That depends. What is the implications of high debt ratio? Let me tell you. Let's say, let's take a high debt ratio where the equity is very low. Let's say 1 lakh. So it's like 10:1. It's a high debt ratio. And low debt ratio, like 1:2. Low debt ratio. Now, what are the implications of having high debt ratio? If the company is having high debt ratio, debt बहुत ज्यादा है, ठीक है? तो क्या implications है? What are the implications? If 10:1, what are the implications if the company is having high debt? First of all, there is no problem. Just listen to me. There is no problem if the company is having a high debt ratio. Problem only comes if the profits are declining. Okay, if the company, let's say, pay on the debt, company pay on the debt 10%. Okay, but earns, let's say, 26% from the projects or the investments. Okay, now 26% company is earning and paying how much as a cost of capital? 10%. It's a good thing. Yes, it's a good thing because the ROI is much better than the company is paying 10%. Let's say if I am paying 10%, but I am earning from those funds, let's say 26%. Isn't it good? Yes, I think good. But when the problem comes, just listen to me carefully, because problem comes when the profits are declining. When the profit starts declining of the company, like in today's scenario, if the company is having more debt. Yesterday I discussed also, company, the salary cuts, uh you know default because there is no demand. Okay, the products, people, companies are not able to sell, so they are not able to generate the demand. Okay, so factories are shut. We have seen many factories are shut. Okay, just saw Atlas Cycle, they shut down their operation. So what is happening? If just imagine the Atlas Cycle has a huge debt and there is no demand in the market. Okay, they are not able to produce revenues, they are not able to produce, generate revenue, profits. Okay, so what will happen? There would be a fixed debt payments that the company has to make. If you fail to make the payments, like interest payments, what will happen? The debt lenders will come to your building outside, queuing up and asking for their money back. Okay, so it will again lead to a bad reputation of the company. Now think about this. If this scenario happens, what will happen to its equity share? What will happen to the share which is listed on the stock exchange? Everybody knows because it's a public company and public company has to disclose everything. That's the protocol. Okay, now lenders are standing outside the building and asking for their money, but the business does not have the operations. So what will happen to the equity price? Definitely it will start for falling. Like I said, there is a psychology of the investor because this company will not be able to pay the debt. And what will happen? The company will lead to a bankruptcy. Bankrupt ho jayegi. Let's sell the stock. So there is a sentiment coming out, right? So that's a debt equity ratio. Okay, what is the low equity ratio? Okay, now one thing I would like to add in the debt equity ratio, if you're already having a debt and let's say Atlas Cycle, the same example, if the Atlas Cycle goes for further debt, okay, because they don't have a sufficient funds to pay the salaries of its employees, and they go for the fundraising or the debt raising, will any company lend money to Atlas Cycle? No. Reason is simply no, because the company is already in the debt and the operations are not going. How the other company will lend money to this company? No one do that. Okay, so now you have to find out, is it a good to have a debt on the company? On another side, which let me show you the other side also. If the company has debt is considered to be the cheaper source of finance. Basically, it's considered to be the cheaper source of finance because it is tax deductible. So having a debt, it's a good thing because it can increase the benefit of shareholders. Because just imagine, if the company is just a equity, there would be a lot of number of equity shareholders. EPS will be low because there are a lot of number of equity shareholders. If you don't know EPS, I will come to the EPS also. Okay, so but at the same time, if the companies have debt and the company is able to generate the revenues, there are less number of equity share which can enjoy the benefit because the cost of financing is low in case of a debt. Debt की financing cost low होती है. because वो tax में deduct होता है, ठीक है? So that's how it is. Now, interest coverage ratio, this is very important factor that you should look upon the interest coverage ratio. Basically, it judges the capacity of the company to pay interest. If the company of EBIT is basically the operating profit, earning before interest and taxes, is the company is having sufficient profit to pay interest? Let's say I have a company and I generate profit of 5,000 and the interest payment that I have to make this year 1,000. Do I have sufficient amount? Yes, I have 5 times of interest that I have to pay. That's fine. That's good. Okay. Next is the activity ratio. This is another. This is also important ratio. EBIT full form is earning before interest and taxes. Okay. All right. So inventory turnover ratio is basically it indicates how fast inventory is sold. Okay, how you are able to fast, how you are able to sell the inventory fast. Let's imagine this is an inventory and this is a store. Okay, this is a store and you have to sell the inventory. How much number of times, how you are able to generate in cash from the inventory by selling it. COGS is the cost of goods sold divided by average inventory. Those who don't know the formulas, that's fine. We are just focusing on the interpretation. My purpose is to focus on the interpretation part, not on the formula part, so that you can analyze it better. Okay, let's say in today's scenario, COVID-19 scenario, what is happening? Are companies able to convert their inventory into cash? Are they able to do that? No, because for some of the companies, inventory is just lying in the go down because there is a less demand. To boost the demand, government may extend a credit. You take a credit card, just take a credit card and buy. Government may do that. Financial system, how it works? I told you yesterday. So government can create demand by extending the credit, but at the end, customer has to pay back, right? If the customer does not pay back, what will happen? There will be a creation of NPAs again. We are again going into the cycle. Okay. So my question is, if the turnover ratio, let's say, comes out to be 6 times. Okay. So 6 times in a year, you are able to generate the cash. Let's say if I have to convert into the inventory days, I have to divide. Let's say if I have to calculate in the months, I will take 12. If I have to calculate in the days, I will take 365 and so on. And let's say turnover ratio comes out to be 6. So 6 divided by 12 divided by 6 is 2 months. So that means interpretation of the inventory days is that it takes on an average in a year 2 months, for the 2 months, inventory lies in the go down. Okay. So now if it is 8, if let's say it is 12 times, let's say it's 12 times, so the days would be, the months would be 1 month. Is it good? Inventory is moving fast from the go downs to sales, right? Because it's just the 1 month of the inventory which lies in the go down. That's fine, we can manage that. Okay, let's say it is too high, बहुत ज़्यादा है, 24, yeah, something like that. It's very high. So if it is very high, then we may say we do not have the sufficient inventory to serve the sales. Okay, we are lacking in the inventory part. We do not have the sufficient inventory in the go down so that we can cater the needs. That's another thing. Okay, so you need to check about the inventory turnover ratio. Especially it matters for the FMCG industry, retail industry, manufacturing industry. So it matters really for these kind of industries. Okay, trade receivable, how much you are able to convert, receivables into cash. Receivable means, let's say some customer came to me and asked me, hey, please give me some credit, I will pay your money to you later on, like after 1 month. So I extend credit to my customer. It happens in the businesses. Okay, let's say I have to buy some product and I will pay later. And in the same time, if the customer comes to me and says, okay, I will pay you later, okay, so that is like a receivable. I generate receivable because I have to receive from the customer. So what happens in the turnover ratio? If I have to calculate how fast I am able to generate, uh, how fast I am able to convert my receivables into cash, that is trade receivable turnover ratio. Okay, so let's say it comes out to be 8 times, and if I have to calculate for months, like, so you can calculate 1 point something. Okay, so it's like 1.1 month something. So in 1.5 months period, I'm generating my, you know, cash from the receivables. So longer the period, if it is a longer the period, then my money is tied up in the accounts receivable. Okay, just let's have a quickly look at the trade payable ratio. Okay, am I audible? Am I audible? Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Thank you so much for reply. Okay, trade payable turnover. Basically, as it's accounts receivable. I said it's like a the creditors from which I have bought some goods. I have to pay to the suppliers, and the credit period I enjoy. Let's say turnover ratio comes out to be 5 times. Okay, now I will have to calculate in the months 2 point something 2.4 days or 4 months. Okay, so longer the period, that means I am enjoying my credit period. I don't have to pay too much early. That's a good thing. It's another source of finance. If you, let's say, purchase a good, okay, let's say if you purchase a good and you don't have to pay for 2 months, is it okay? Let's say you purchase a goods, you don't have to pay for a 1 month. No, that's a problem. No. We want money to be received early, but we want to pay it later. That's the whole strategy. No. Okay, so that trade payable turnover. Now, very important ratios are profitability ratio. In profitability ratio, we talk about generally the gross profit ratio. Gross profit ratio is basically the revenue minus COGS, the cost of goods equals to gross profit. Operating profit, how much profit you have generated. Net profit is the bottom line. I said top line is the revenue. Okay, after deducting every cost, you reach to the net profit. Okay. That's a net profit ratio. Okay, next is return on the capital employed. This is very, very important ratio. Now just have a look at this. This is very important ratio. Now EBIT. Okay, EBIT is, I said, earnings before interest and taxes, like operating profit. Okay. Now average capital employed kya hai? Average capital employed is basically the debt funds you have raised plus your equity plus preference. Now how much you have how much you have made the use of average capital employed to generate EBIT. So basically how much we have utilized the fund to generate the return. Okay, so basic, yes, higher the ratio, better it is that you have generated a good return. That is the thing which we have to look. Now how it is differentiated from return on shareholders equity. Basically EBIT is a profit which is available to everyone before interest, before taxes. We have not made the payment to debt holders, that is before interest and taxes. We have not paid even the taxes. Then how much we are generating using the funds, that is return on the capital employed, ROI. Okay, and for return on shareholders equity, that how much money we have generated for the shareholders equity. Okay, after paying to our debts, let's say that you make payments to the debt, interest payments, and then after making payments to your debt holders, how much money you have generated for the equity. Like I said, equity holders are paid at the last. Okay, whatever the left amount is paid to the equity holders, right? So net profit after tax divided by average total shareholders equity. So this is very important ratio from the equity investor point of view of equity investor. Okay, now book value per share, which I just showed you in the beginning of the session. How do you calculate the book value? Net worth. Net worth, how do you calculate? Assets minus liabilities. Okay, that's how you calculate the book value share. Okay, next slide. Now this is very, very important ratio. Now I'm going to talk the practical things. Just pay attention, everyone. Now, price to earning ratio. Now, what is price to earning ratio? Market price per share divided by earning per share, EPS. Now, first of all, we'll have to understand what is EPS. Okay. Let's say the company made a net profit, which is a bottom line. Okay. Which is a profit after paying interest payments we paid to the debenture holders or the debt holders, loan, those who have given loan to us, we have paid interest to them. And then we have paid preference dividend also. Okay. Now net profit, we have net profit available for equity. Now what is available for equity? Let's say you make a sales and after paying all the costs which are related to sales, and then you make payment for your debt funds like interest payments, and then the company makes for the preference dividend, and whatever is left is remaining for the equity holder. Okay, just imagine if guest comes to our house, and after serving the guest, what is left is for the owner of the houses. Just jump on the snacks. It's like that only. So EPS is like a net profit available for equity, right? Divided by number of equity shares. Then we have to divide how many members we are to jump on the snacks. So the analogy. So let's say the net profit is 10,000 and the number of equity shares are 1,000. Okay. So if I divide, everyone will get rupees 10. So that is EPS. Okay. Let's say the market share. Let's take any company. Let's say I take any bank. Let's say Axis Bank. I may not be the correct in the number because I'm just assuming the hypothetical number. Let's say this 400. The market price of the share is 400, and the EPS we just calculated is rupees 10. So it comes out to be 40:1. Okay. Now what is the interpretation? Understand the interpretation that for 1 rupee of earning, okay, let's say I've calculated the ratio for 1 rupee of earning, I am ready to pay 40 rupees. That is the interpretation. Once again, if the ratio is 40:1, if I am earning 1 rupees, I am ready to pay how much? 40 rupees for the price of the share. Okay, let's say if the ratio is 30:1, if I'm earning for 1 rupee of earning, which is the EPS, I am getting 1 rupees, but I am ready to pay how much? 30 rupees. Okay. If the ratio is 2:1, I am earning 1 rupees, but I am ready to pay how much? 20 rupees. Let's look at the another angle. Another angle क्या है? Now another angle is the market price is 40 times of its earnings. This is another angle. If the company is earning, let's say 10 rupees, 40 times of its earnings is the market price, which is 400. This is another angle of interpreting this ratio. Now the question comes, what do we have to do this ratio? Okay, that's fine. We know that if I'm earning 1 rupee, I'm ready to pay 40 rupees. That is 40:1 is a PE ratio. Now, how it is beneficial to me in selecting the stock? Okay, generally it is said that low PE ratio, the company is having the low PE ratio. The company is having the high PE ratio. Let's say the company A is having a company B, the company is having 2:1, and the company B is having 30:1. We can say that, somehow we can say that, but mind it, this is not the only parameter. This is not the only parameter to analyze the company. 30:1 basically is the expensive stock. We can say the stock is expensive, and we can say the A stock is cheaper. Can we say this by just looking at the one company? You know, if I'm just looking at the one company and saying that okay, it is expensive, it is cheap, how can I compare? How can I say that? I need to have some comparison. You know, if I can compare, because the earnings vary from the industry to industry. How can I say if I'm selecting a stock Tata Steel, if I'm selecting a stock Infosys, if I'm selecting a stock Axis Bank, how can I compare the ratio between the three sectors? I cannot. So I'll have to compare with the industry standards. What is the P ratio of the industry? Like all the earnings in the industry and the price average price, average P ratio kitna hai? Let's say industry. If I take the retail industry, the FMCG industry. Okay, let's say the industry P is, sorry. Okay, industry P is comes out to be 35, and this P is 21. Can I say this is the undervalued stock? Somehow. But should I buy the stock? No, no, not only parameter. Okay, not only parameter, mind it. If the industry is 35.1 and the PE of this stock is 20.1, it is undervalued. Yes, it is undervalued. Should I buy? No, wait for the another things. Let's wait for the more slides to come. Okay, now let's say this ratio, we said it's a high P ratio, but this industry says its P ratio is 10, let's say 25:1. This is overvalued. Should I sell this one? No. Just look at the other factors also. Okay, let's find out the ratio of P ratio of Nifty. Yesterday I discussed. Okay, once again, if the industry P ratio is 35:1, that for industry, for one earnings, customers are ready to pay 35 rupees. For this company, customers are ready to pay only 20 rupees. So can we say this is undervalued, less expensive, undervalued? It's like the standard is 35, and this company is 20 P ratio. Okay, let me take you to the NSE website. Go to the products. Historical data. Select the time period. No, wait. Just wait for 2 minutes. Okay, now here I can find the P ratios. Let's just select the time period of, you can only select a time period of a 1 year. Nifty can do not take into the account of more than 1 year, but period could be previous periods or current periods, could be any period, but for 1 year. Let's take a 1 year data. January 2009, June 2019. Okay, I think this should work. P ratio. Okay, just have a look at the P ratio. 5th July, let me change to the current data. Like 18. Okay, now just have a look. On 5th July, the P ratio was 29. That means for 1 rupee earning, the Nifty, I'm talking about the Nifty 50, where Nifty constitutes the 50 stocks. 29, 28, 28, 28, 28, 28, 28, just going 28, 28, 28. Okay. And then, the Corona period came. When did it come? Well, I have to download in the CSV format because I'm not able to see that. I'll show it to you. Wait. Okay, are you able to see my Excel screen? Now, just have a look. Okay, in 2019, it was 29.17. Okay, and then if I just go down, it was just moving around 27p, 26p. Trading was at this level. And let's say what happened to PE when Corona period came? It reached to almost like 18, from 29 to 18. Okay, 21, 21, 21, and the market has started rising now. So 25 is the current P in 19th June. Okay, so what does it imply? Let me show you another data. Okay, now it is the P I have studied for the period 2007, when this crisis came. I mean, 2009 May, in 13/9, bankruptcy was filed by the Lehman Brothers, which led to a global crisis. And what was the reasons for the global crisis? We will have a discussion later on, maybe in some other session. Okay, so let's see in 2007 what the P was 20.62. And what happened in 2009? You will be surprised to know. I'll just point out. Let's see, 12 P. See, can you say it's undervalued? Where it was, P was trading initially as 22 to 21 levels, and it came down to 12, in fact 11, in fact 10. 10 P. That means, can you say it's undervalued situation? Okay, so yeah, somehow it's an undervalued situation wherein, okay, and then it started picking up. Now the P is almost 25. Okay, let me show you another interesting thing. Okay, I was just reading about the P and came across this article. Okay, and maybe is it right or wrong, but came across this article, so thought to share with you. And I just went to the data. I downloaded data from 2007 to 2009 and studied the P, how the P is ranging between. Okay, so they say, okay, if the Nifty is between 25 to 30, it's a rare event and screaming sell, that you should sell for your stocks if it comes to this range. And if it is, 20 to 25, it's expensive, book 80% profit and wait for the better entry levels. If the P is like 50 to 20, buy or hold. If it is 12 to 15, screaming buy. You should buy it. And if it is extremely, then it is extremely inexpensive. It is below 12. That's a rare event, which I showed you in 2008 what happened. Okay. So that was the PE. Now, we will discuss PE more in the fundamental analysis, which we are just going to do it. Okay, now the question is coming to that after studying a little bit theoretical part, how to analyze the company. Okay, first of all, how to analyze the company. The first step that you should do is analyze the macroeconomic and industry circumstances. Like in today's circumstances, you should you should be aware about the GDP, your market environment, okay, inflation. Basically, in the slow growth, equities underperform. Okay, equity does not perform very well. I'm not talking about a specific sector, but it may happen with some sectors that you see a slowdown in those sectors. So basically, so in if you are able to survive in recession, okay, if you are able to bear the losses in equities in recession, you will have a long term benefit if you are invested in a good stock. Okay, and then we have to study the business environment, like business environment of the company in which it operates. You know, आज से पहले travel industry was at boom. Okay, why? Because my if you ask anybody what is your hobby, then he would say traveling. Now this culture was building in among our Indians that we have to travel after 2 or 3 months because we just feel burnout after working so hard and we need a break and we have to travel. This was the trend. And once people upload pictures on the Facebook and so it encourages other people to also to travel. So what I'm trying to say is travel industry was at boom. Then what happened? A virus which came, now destroyed, I mean the stopped the growth of, halted the growth of the travel industry. We all know that. Okay, we will avoid leisure travel for some time at least, maybe not for the long term, but at least for some time. Okay, what was the other industries was associated with the travel industries, like aviation industry. Okay, it has also been impacted. Hotel industry. So all these are interests are highly correlated. If there is an impact on travel industry, there would definitely be impact on aviation. There would be definitely impact on hotels. If if aviation industry is impacted, there would be impact on the travel and the hotel also. So yeah, so these are the correlated companies, and you need to be aware about the business environment in which you operate. Assess the risk associated with the operations. What are the risks associated with the operations that you should be aware about? So fundamentally, first of all, what you will look at the business environment. Now, in this business environment, which companies can grow? First of all, you will have to be look upon those. And one my sincere advice to you: only invest in those companies which you really think you have a good knowledge about that industry, or you have a competitive advantage of that particular industry. Okay, just study industry. It takes time. Okay, it's not that random investing does not pay always. Not always. You may earn in the short term random investing by advising on someone. If somebody is giving you advice, then you may earn something, but it does not work in the long term. So what are the risks associated? Now this is important part. DIIs. DIIs is institutional investors, like I talked about yesterday's, mutual funds, insurance companies, financial institutions. These are the DIIs. If they invest in a particular stock, will you think that the stock will rise? Yes. If foreign investors comes to a particular stock, will you think stocks will rise? Why? Because I said, because of demand and supply. If there are more investors coming to a particular stock, what will happen? It will rise, right? Now, what is promoter holding? Who are promoters? Who are promoters? Promoters are those who are in the process of the formation of the company. They also hold a certain percentage of shares, but that is the one point to you know look at the companies. If the promoter shares are declining, promoter share, let's say 30% in 2018, 20% in 2019, and 2020 it's like 15%. So promoter shares are declining. It's not a good sign. Promoters themselves do not have the confidence in the company, how the public will have. It's not the good sign. If they have a less promoter holding, okay, so they are less exposed to the prices of the share, like 13%, 5% promoter holding, 2% promoter holding. Promoters are themselves not confident about the company, how would you be? So you have to be, you have to look for these factors. DIIs are the institutional investors, FIIs are the foreign mutual funds, hedge funds, sovereign funds, and all. Promoter holdings, you have to look for. We will look for. Now it's time to do the fundamental analysis of Infosys. Let's do that. Infosys, first of all, know about the company. Okay. It is a global leader in the next generation digital services and consulting. Okay. And then find some positives and negatives of the company. The strength of the company has no debt. Company has no debts. Okay. It has a strong cash generating reliability from the core business. Okay. Improving cash flow from operations, which is a good thing. No zero promoter pledge. What is pledge? Promoter pledge. Basically, pledge is something promoters pledge their shares. Let's say if they have to raise funds like debt funds, so they will place their shares as collateral. They pledge their shares. Okay, so the promoter holding goes decreasing. So company with zero promoter pledge. Okay. So it's a good sign. Increasing revenue every quarter, which is a good sign. Company able to generate net cash. Improving cash flow, which is a liquidity position. I have sufficient cash to pay for my liabilities. Negative क्या है? Negative is decline in the net profit. Okay. Promoter holding is low. Like I said, promoter holding is low, 13%. Now you would ask me where I've got this data. I'm going to take you in just 5 minutes all the websites. Just wait for another 5 minutes. Okay. Now key ratios. What are those key ratios? Fundamentally, we check the 32.58%, which I discussed with you. What is ROCE with return on the capital employed? It is 32%, which is a good percentage that company has been able to utilize its funds efficiently and able to generate 32% as revenue or return on capital employed, which is a good thing. Okay. Debt to equity ratio, very low. Okay. Just for a one debt, 0.07, negligible debt. Okay, that's fine. Net profits are good. Price to earning ratio 18.6. We will have to check whether it's undervalued or overvalued, the industry PE. Okay. And what is ROE? We'll go to is this. ROE is also good. That company is able to generate for equity shareholders 25%. Let's have a look. Okay, current ratio, which is also good, 2.47. Let me take you to the website. So I'm going to open moneycontrol.com. Are you able to see moneycontrol.com on my screen? Are you able to see moneycontrol.com on my screen? Okay. Let's take Infosys. Okay. Okay, valuation. Now the industry P is 19.45 and the PE of is 19.34. It's in line with the industry. Can we say it is in line with the industry? Yes. Now there's another tool from which you can do the fundamental analysis. Let me show you that one also. Screener. Screener.in. Let me type Infosys. Okay, So here I got the information. Everything you want to know about the fundamentals of the company, you can write and type. Okay, let's say, let me edit the ratios and, okay, let's say I want to know um, any ratio like current ratio, it's already given. P ratio, profit after tax. Okay, so here is the profit after tax, 16.49. You just enter and you can just see on your screen. I can see on the screen promoter holding EV. Okay, market cap I told you yesterday, it's a share price multiplied by number of shares. Book value, ROCE, debt to equity, promoter holding, debt capacity. Okay, interest coverage, yes, it's very good, 129.38. It's the interest coverage ratio that company is, has a capacity to pay interest coverage, interest payments. And cash flow, cash equivalents we have, okay. Now let me show you one other thing. Ratios. Let's see the shareholder pattern, which I showed you. FIIs, promoters, promoter holding is more or less the same for last 3 years, but it's very low in itself, but it's not a decreasing trend. Okay, so that is alarming, that if it is a decreasing trend. FIIs have reduced little bit. Okay, DIIs, what are FIIs? You will have an idea about. FII is a foreign institutional investor, government of Singapore, Vanguard. Okay, so all these are Franklin Templeton funds, Abu Dhabi Investment Authority. So DIIs are domestic and institutional investors, like within the country, and foreign investors outside the country. So life insurance is an institutional investor. Okay, they take your money, like I said, financial system. They take your money. Obviously, they invest in somewhere. Otherwise, they will be able to give you a return. How would they give you? HDFC Mutual Fund investment, LIC investment, UTI, you can see all the investment. And what about the public? Deutsche Trust Americas. Okay. All right. So we have seen. Now let's look at the performance of the Infosys last 3 years. So 3 years it has performed good. I'm also holding this particular share. So we saw a dip here, and then it, came back to good level. Now, one thing that you should look for the company is news. If any wrong news in the companies, the share will start falling. Now you have to analyze the news. Is it a short-term lived or a long-term news? Short-term lived is major disturbances in the country, in the company. Like when Vishal Sikka resigned, its share price fell so much, it's drastically. But again, it picked up with new board of directors. Okay, recently there was a case of whistleblower in the Infosys. So what happened? Again picked up. So that's what you have to study. Now the another thing which we want to know about this Yes Bank. So Yes Bank analysis. Everyone knows about the Yes Bank. What happened in March? Like I said, if we it's a part of the financial system. Do you think a failure of a bank our financial system can afford? Answer is no, because if there is a one bank failure, even if people are not getting the money which they deposited in the banks, they will not have a trust to further deposit in the banks. Okay, so RBI is the one who protects the investor. Okay, basically what is happening, that what happened if the Yes Bank, Rana Kapoor was the founder of the company, and then he started giving loans to the company which were not so worthy, like credit worthiness was very low, like IIFL, these companies, DHFL. So they, Reliance Communication. So he gave loan in the greediness of earning more interest. So what happened eventually? Just have a look at the profit and loss statement of the Yes Bank. It was going fine. You'll surprised to know the share price of this company, in 2013 it was 8294, 9981 revenues, and revenue started growing like anything, and the share price was also growing like a growth investor. You look at just the growth of the company. Like if you are a growth investor, you would have invested at this point of time, because you see the expansion in the growth in the revenues. Okay, and March, this one. And then what happened in March 2009, it posted a negative profit of 2021 crores, which is a huge amount. And Yes Bank emerged as the fifth largest banks of India. 2021. And the and what happened then? We all know that what happened. This is the fundamental analysis of debt, huge debt equity ratio very high, promoter holding very low, and debt capacity negative, interest coverage negative. So let's see. Not this one. Let me go back to the another screener. Let's type Yes Bank. I've showed you already this ratio. Let's have a look at the promoter holding. Promoters, Madhu Kapoor, Rana Kapoor. See the decline trend of, declining trend in the promoter holdings. 1 point, Rana Kapoor, almost zero. Yes Bank, okay. Now, what happened if I remember the date, if I'm not wrong with the date, on 6th March, RBI placed moratorium on the bank, restricting withdrawals just to 50,000 rupees. Okay, that was a big shock to the investor, those who had a public deposits in the bank. A big shock. Just imagine if you have placed your deposit in the bank and the bank would say, no, you have a limit to withdraw your limit. You have a sleepless nights. So what happened? Then RBI came into the picture. Major banks took stake in the company. Just have a look. Just have a look here. This one. Can you see here? The DIIs. State Bank of India took 48% share. Okay, and then insurance company doesn't have share. ICICI Bank took share in March, and Axis Bank took share 4.78, and so on. So that's what happened with the Yes Bank. Okay, next. Now look at the share price. Let me tell you a very interesting thing. In March 2020, when RBI announced the moratorium, it fell down, I think, very low price. If I'm not, maybe I'm wrong with the price, but approximately it fell below 10. Okay, below 10 rupees. And when things started picking up, when the SBI took the stake, the highest it recorded is 80 rupees. Imagine if in just 7 days or 10 days period, if somebody would have taken position at 10 rupees and would have sold 80 rupees, you would have made 70 rupees per share. But yes, that is the technicals, because the demand started rising, and when the things were like fine, it again went down to 28 rupees. Now the price is 28 rupees, and RBI has capped on selling of Yes Bank shares. Let's say if you're holding more than 100 shares, you cannot sell 100 shares. Only you can sell 75% of your holdings. You cannot share, the 100% of the shares if you have more than 100 shares. And then this is a Yes Bank. We were not able to identify the lowest price. This was the lower price, and see the peak. Can you imagine? Can you see the lowest point in just March 20? And April, not even the crossed April and reached to this level. See, you could have made gain this level. So just be aware about these stocks. If the fundamentals are not good and the price is rising, it will eventually fall because the fundamentals are not good. Fell to is, now it is stable at this level. And if you look at the 3-year performance, it was at a very high level and then a downfall because the fundamentals were not good. Okay, now the last example of Alok Industries. Now this share, this company is a textile manufacturing company, was going for bankruptcy proceedings. You know, this is a news from Financial Express. Alok Industry stock soars 9 times in 4 months. Ambani Touch takes stock from NCLT to multi-beggar. Okay, just read it. From bankruptcy, bankruptcy means that company does not have anything to pay, to becoming a stock which has given an investors 8 to 2% returns. What do you mean by 8 to 2% returns? If you had invested, let's say 10,000, you would have 80,000 in just 3 or 4 months. Isn't it interesting? Yesterday, I was talking about only buyers you will find. Every day it is increasing by 5%. Okay, now again, these are the risky stocks, very risky stocks, because the Reliance has taken stake into it. That's why the prices started picking up. Now, from bankruptcy to becoming a stock which has given 8 to 2% returns in the past few months, the story has the one name associated with has is changed the fortune of the firm on the stock exchanges. The name is Mukesh Ambani. Alok Industries, once a bankrupt textile manufacturer based out of Mumbai, was taken up by the Reliance Industries with JM Financial Asset Construction. And post that, on February 27, price was 14, and now it is trading at 36.5 for the first time since global crisis. Now, one interesting thing that you would like to know about this, Alok Industry has been asked by the Reliance Industry to manufacture PPE kits, which is in high demand in today's environment. See the business environment. Which country fights the novel coronavirus pandemic? According to reports, Alok Industry will manufacture more than 1 lakh PPE kits per day at a cost of rupees per unit, 650 per unit, which will be 1/3 to the cost of the PPE kits imported from the countries like China. Now we are self-reliant on Alok Industries for PPE kits. Look at the price. Just have a look at the price. Can you see? Don't you think it seems like a coronavirus cases are increasing and like share prices increasing of Alok Industries? No, the logarithmic scale is like increasing the same speed. Okay, now your homework. Is Tata Steel a value stock? Let's find out. Let me help you in doing your homework. Okay, let's go to the screener tool. Screener, you don't have to calculate all the ratios. Okay, Tata Steel. What is the book value? Book value is 644, which I told you. Book value is basically net worth of the company. Okay, divide by. Okay, like this. Okay. Book value is basically assets minus liabilities divided by number of share book value. So accordingly, the book value is 644 and trading 321. It is undervalued or overvalued. You can write in the chat box, undervalued or overvalued. Let's have a look at the PE. Now P I cannot find here. I'll have to go through some other website like NSE website. I'll just go and see. Let's go to the NSE website. Okay, let's have a look at the PE. So they have compared the PE with the sectorial index. I told you sectorial index, steel index, it looks like an undervalued stock. Okay, it looks like an undervalued stock according to PE because the sector index is 14.87 and the symbol is PE. But we cannot just compare because of the different market capitalization of different stocks. But as an overall idea, if I just go to the moneycontrol.com and see Tata Steel. Okay, just wait. Have a look. Technicals are saying bullish. Okay, so P in this case is 5.17 industry P and 3.73 is the P of Tata Steel. So accordingly, this is also undervalued and the book value is 625 and the current market price is 320. So value investor would generally look for the book value which is lower than its value. Okay, so that's how it is. And I think that's it from my side. One thing I would just, the last thing, which is that's your homework to assess is a Tata Steel a good buy or not, because Tata Steel, in Tata Steel, you will have to check the another factors also, not the book value only, the fundamentals you will check. Okay, you will check the fundamentals about the business environment, when the steel demand in the country will pick up. Okay, when there would be, see, if there are, they started with the car manufacturing, there would be need of steel. So there are the complementary industries, you know, these are the complementary industries. So you have to find out, is there any wrong news about the Tata Steel? Is there, what is the business environment for the Tata Steel? What is the PE ratio? Is it undervalued, overvalued? And if it is undervalued, you know, why it is undervalued? What are the reasons of not increasing the price? Then you have to be really careful. Stocks like Alok Industries, stocks like Yes Bank are like a catching a falling knife. It can hurt you, you know, and you need to be very careful in the stock markets. If you really want to invest in the markets, then my sincere advice, invest with the very small amounts. I hope that you are too young. Okay, so if you start observing the markets right now, maybe you can gain expertise in analyzing the stock. But if you want to start with a very small amount and start for the good companies. Okay, so you will have a confidence that I've invested in good companies pays return little slowly, but yeah, a good return you can expect in the long term. So what Warren Buffett has to say about, let's not forget Warren Buffett in investing. When we talk about the investing, he has been a value investor. Okay, on earning, never depend on single income. Make investment to create the second source. On spending, if you buy things you don't need soon, you will have to sell things you need. Okay. On savings, do not save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving. On taking risk, never test the depth of the river with both of the feet. So don't take much risk. As I said, if you want to start investing, start with a little amount. On investment, do not put all eggs in the one basket. You should, you know, practice diversification. Okay, that's it from my side. I will welcome all the questions and thanks for patient listening. Thank you so much, lovely people. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, I'm going to take questions. So let me just read the questions. Are mutual funds good for new investor? Yes. Then you need to be little careful about the mutual funds also, because you know mutual funds are subject to market risk, because they also invest your money in the funds, pool of funds. So that also, you know, um, creates a risk for you, then if you want to start with, you can start with a small amount. Yes, somebody is saying we'll check Tata Steel, but Tata Motors is a bad buy because the JLR, you know, the Jaguar Land Rover, it has shown a very bad growth, very, you know, low growth. So yes, I will take questions now. Okay, so okay, one question I'm getting a lot of questions. So how to open an account for investing? You'll have to open a Demat account. Okay, Demat account is the must. So that your shares can be transferred electronically. So you have to have a Demat account. No. Is there any scenario? An interesting question. No, Sensex cannot touch zero. Okay, because they select accordingly. P ratio is, again, I'm telling you, it's earning. Basically, for 1 rupee earning, how much are you able to pay the price? Okay, how much are you able to pay the price? That's the question. Okay, one question I'm getting is, a lot of questions I'm getting. Why asset ratio? Okay, that's another name. That is another name. Is it necessary to read annual report during fundamental analysis? See, you have so many tools available that you don't have to read, you know, annual report. Just go by the ratio analysis and then you can just follow. Zerodha account. Yes, you can use Zerodha account because it has a very low commission. Okay, one thing that if you go for investing, look for those brokerage houses where you have very, you know, less brokerage. Okay. Does demand for MBA graduates increase for? Okay, so that we'll have to see. Is current scenario will Nifty go down to the level of 8,500 in nearly 2 months? This may happen, you know, when the data starts releasing. If we just have seen a quarter growth, which was from the January to the March quarter growth. Okay, and from the March January quarter growth, it started in India like in the March. Pandemic started in March, and we have to see for the another quarters how the earnings are increasing or falling. That we'll have to see. So Nifty may touch 8,500 levels. That we'll have to see. Depends upon the earning growth, like a PE ratio, you know. So how much you are paying, ready to pay for price for just rupee 1 earning. That is a PE ratio, which I explained. Okay. Okay, which is the best site to open a Demat account? That's up to you. Just look for the less brokerages because you will definitely not like to pay much brokerages for your trading. Current scenario as market, we have seen lows in the market. I have witnessed below 8,000 Nifty, which was actually very low since 2008. If we compare, you know, that was actually the time to buy. But for current scenarios, we'll have to do little research. And if you ask me which is the stock I should invest in, I have just told you the two tools to analyze those stock, and then it's your choice. It's your research from which you will select the stock.
Fine, Bharti ma'am, thank you for the wonderful learning for the day 2. And we'll close it now. I
Yes,
think we
yes.
answered enough questions now. For the certificates, you can go to the Takshila's website, www.takshila.in. Go to the event section and you can click on mini MBA and MBA finance and download, answer the questions there. So you'll be able to download your certificate from that part. All the questions which you are typing out, we have a lot of other questions also in terms of market zero game, and also you can send these on email and we'll be able to answer you the questions there. So we'll be able to answer you out all those questions there. And the certificates are available after 6 p.m. today. So you can go to www.takshila.in and download the certificate